Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this video, we will discuss approvals app of Odoo. So let's first of all we'll move to the admin panel. In admin, on this main screen, you can see here one app with the name of approvals. I open this app. This is the main dashboard of this approval app. Here you can see that the different 8 type of approvals have been already defined, already configured in the system. One is the name of business trip, then borrow item, general approval, contract approval, procurement, job referral award, car rental application, and payment application. And a system have the capability that we can define our own type of approvals. And although these have been defined initially, but we can also change the configuration of these types. Before going to the configuration of these different approval types, let's say first of all we learn how to use this app and what features this app provides to us. So let's say we try by taking the approval of one business trip from one you can see employee. First of all, let's say if I switch to my employees app and I click here and select, let's say, the employee Mazhar. From this screen you can see that the manager of Mazhar is Mr. Sarfraz, and for Mazhar if I go to the work information, here you can see that his expense approvals will be by that is for the expense approval. Here just we will see that the manager of Mr. Mazhar is Mr. Muhammad Sarfraz. So now I switch to the Mazhar login and apply for a trip. So if we here I am in Mazhar login, here you can see, and from his login from his dashboard he just opened this approval app and he apply for the business trip. Let's say he put a new request and business trip for, let's say, Ishar, for Lahore. Request owner is Mr. Mazhar and category is a business trip, and from period, let's say he wants to do a business trip from 27th to 28th April, and the location is let's say Hadappa Solar. This is the office name, and in a description he can put want to visit Solar for meeting, and if some attachment is required he can also attach the documents. Let's say we attach one document from any one document. If I take let's say I take this file, any Excel file is there. Let's say he take this Excel file as an attachment, that can be PDF, Excel or Word file or any JPG file. Then he submits this. Here you can see one attachment is there, and even you can see here the attachment, and this is his request that from 27th to 28th he wants to visit this location. So he submits his application. Now the system is generating the emails for the approvers. So now if we see here at the bottom, we can see here that one approval is pending at the admin. He have to approve or reject this, and then one approval is pending at for Mr. Hamad Rashid, and one approval is pending for Mr. Muhammad Sarfraz. And if and here we can also see that these are 3 approvals: admin, Hamad, Rashid and Sarfraz, and all these three are in to approve status. If I open the email of Mazhar, no email is there, and if I open my email, yes, if I open my email here, you can see my email. Then you can see that an email is there, that business trip for Lahore. This is the approval request. Mazhar assigned you an activity approval on business trip for Lahore to go for 14, and this I can click on this and I can view the approval request. But let's say if I move to my my own login in this system, then here this is the login of yes. If I open my, let's say, this approvals app, here I can see that to review I have two different applications, and if I open these, then one request is from Mr. Mazhar to for a business trip for Lahore, and one is already there was another one request. And even if I am on any different window, and if I click on this one, activities, here we can see that we have approval request. One is late and one for today. If I click on this one, then I can see here business trip for Lahore, these requests that I have to approve that have been submitted, and there's need that I have to approve or refuse these one. Let's say I open this one, then I can see all the detail, and I also can see the attachment, and I can see that this approval is pending at admin and at Hamad Rashid and Muhammad Sarfraz. Let's say I approve it. When I have approved this one, here you can see that the status of this have been changed, that Arsol have admin have approved this approval, and now it is pending on these two employees. And if I open this one approver, here we can see that admin have approved, but yet the status of this approval is submitted. Now let's say I log off from this window, and I continue with the login of Sarfraz. And Sarfraz will also see in activities that there are some requests pending on his site. If he will open this, then here he can see business trip for Lahore, and he have to approve it. If he opens it and let's say he approve it, here you can see the status of this request have been changed to approved, although yet another approval is pending at the end of Mr. Hamad, and here we can see that admin and Sarfraz, these two persons have approved this approval, and it is pending on Hamad, but the status of this request have been changed to approved. Why? There's no need of Mr. Hamad's approval here. When we will go to the configuration of this business trip, then we will see that we have configured this type of approval in such a way that out of these three, two approvals are required. If any two persons will approve this trip, then the status of this approval will be changed from submitted to the approved state. And if I open the email of Mr. Mazhar, then we can see that he will see his email that your request business trip for Lahore is now in the state approved. That's mean his request have been approved. Now we come to the configuration. Although at any time we can attach different documents, and we can cancel it, and even we can withdraw our if let's say Mr. Sarfraz have approved this one and he wants to withdraw his approval, then he can click on this one, then his approval will be withdrawn. Now I again log in with the admin login, and with the admin login we can see that to review there is one request, this one, and that request have been approved. Approvals to review and approvals, all approvals will be there. These are the different all approvals, some have been approved and some are in approved state. These are the different you can say views that you can check. And now my requests, the request that I have put, from here I can put the new request, and from manager login I can review that needs the approval and all the approvals. And even from by this filters, my request, my approvals to review, we can filter out the different options. If I now move to the configuration and go to the approval types, and this is the business tip, and we see these two in parallel. If so, then if I move to this one, if I move to Mr. Mazhar login, then you can see that on this window there were different options. One was the approval subject, that was the name, then the request owner who made this request, and then the category. These are the three such components that will elements that will be on each request type, for business trip, or for any general approval, or for any traveling approval. All these three elements will be there. But for other elements, here you can see that we have one element like a period, from which time to what time, and then the location. So we have asked two elements, and here again you can see that these two elements were with the bold underline. That means these two are required elements. Before putting this request, before submitting this request, the user have to fill this from and to time period, and after and also he have to fill the location. If we move to the configuration, then you can see in the configuration window, for business trip, what setting is there. Document, that is optional, that was on the top. And then here we can see that period, we have required the period, and we have required the location. So these two are the required elements, and no one was the optional element, and all that elements that we have that are not required, and that will not show on the screen. That's mean contact will not show on the screen, date will not show on the screen, items, quality, quantity, amount, reference, and payment, these elements will not show on that form. Document will be optional, and period and location will be the required. For other type of elements, if we see that for borrow items, we have required again period, and items we have required, and quantity element will be there, but that will be optional. That's mean if we want, let's say if we for the general approvals, we can see that we have just required the document, and all these are optional. That means all these elements will show on the screen, but the filling of that elements will not be the required, that will be optional. If we see, let's say for general approval, if I come to my new requests and go for the general approval, here you can see that all elements are there. Date is there, time period is there, location is there, contract is there, items is there, quantity is there, amount, reference. That means it's up to the configuration that which elements we require on our screen. We can, if all the elements are none, then that element will not display on the screen. For optional, that element will display on the screen, but the filling of that element will be the optional. And if we will choose this option required, then that element will definitely appear on the form, and we have to and the requester have to follow have to fill that element. Without filling that element, the record will not be saved. So these are the fields, some that you can define for your different categories, that which one will display on the form, and which will be the optional, and which will be the required fields. If we come on the right side, here we can see that either the employees managers you can say approval is required. And in the example that we did last, the manager of Mr. Mazhar was Mr. Sarfraz. So Sarfraz's request was approval was required in the for the approval. So, and next, who will be the approvals? If we, let's say, come on that application, here we have said that employees manager approval is required, and two other approvers will be admin and Hamad Rashid. So when we filled that request, when Mr. Mazhar filled that request, then you saw that there were three approvers. One was his manager, that was Mr. Sarfraz, and the second approval was admin, and the third was Hamad Rashid. And here we have defined that how many minimum approvals are required. If we put here one, then only one approval will be required, either the manager or admin or Hamad Rashid. If any one of them will approve his request, then approval will be completed. If we put here two, then approval of any two persons will be required. If we put here three, then the approval from all these three persons, of his manager, of admin, and of Hamad Rashid, will be required. So it's a totally configurable that how many minimum approvals are required for the completion of that approval. And so by this way you can let's say I don't change this one. By this way, if you want to create some other type of approvals, just you have to create and then give here the type approval name, here the any picture or icon for that name, here the description for that one, and from here you can choose the fields that either the document is required or optional. So if we will take on this required, then before submitting this approval, the system will enforce that you have to upload the document, and for others you can choose from these fields, and on the right side you can see select that who will be the approvals and how many minimum approvals are required for the completion of that approval. Thank you.